I'm Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance.
This week on Conversations on Dance, we are happy to bring you a chat with our friend Damien Johnson. The topic of today's conversation was suggested by one of our listeners who is looking for us to delve into male-specific training and some of the issues that arise that are different from females in the field. Damien is a permanent guest faculty member at the School of American Ballet and a sought-after teacher who is certified in the American Ballet Theatre National Training Curriculum. It was just announced that Damien will be stepping into the role of Upper Division Head at the Washington School of Ballet after his recent time as a faculty member at the Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet. Damien is the perfect person to chat with about this topic as he shares advice for young male dancers navigating an aspiring career in ballet. Special thanks to Brett Elizabeth Garner for the topic suggestion today. As a parent of a male dancer who is now part of a second company, Brett has founded the Ballet Help Desk to help other parents support their dancers as they navigate the serious ballet training path. The Ballet Help Desk provides an extensive digital library featuring a collection of articles and videos. Users can explore various topics ranging from the path to becoming a professional dancer to how to choose a ballet residential program to how ballet competitions fit into the mix. Be sure to check them out at ballethelpdesk.com or click the link in the show notes. Now let's get to our chat with Damien.
Damien, welcome back to Conversations on Dance. We've missed you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's always such a treat to get to spend time with the both of you.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
We haven't talked to you on the podcast for a few years now, I realize. I think it was 2020. So we've got some catching up to do. I don't quite recall. I mean, everything is a blur from that year. Where were you at that point? Were you already on permanent guest faculty at SAB? Had you taught at CPYB? Like, what was your life at that moment?
At that, I was definitely still at the Washington School of Ballet. And I think that I know it's such a blur. I think shortly after that was my first summer. Right after the pandemic, after SAB went back from Zoom, was the first time that I taught there, as well as the first time that I came to CPYB. So things went moving.
Yeah. I mean, but that's like two highly prestigious institutions. SAB in particular must have felt, I mean, like a beautiful homecoming. You know, we went to SAB together and we love that institution. Like how did that feel for you? Like when they first asked you to start teaching there?
I was really excited. Of course, I had to get over the nervous jitters, but I just also took it back to remembering being a student there and, you know, how special it was and the things that I've learned that I just wanted to bring back to my adult self and not being, you know, that insecure dancer, young kid anymore.
Right.
That's so true. So how often were you teaching there then? Because you were on guest faculty, is that right?
Yes. I still am currently on guest faculty. So I go there usually for a week during the summer program, and then I pop in during the year when I can. I was lucky enough to do, I was a fellow as well, and I got to, you know, study with Katrina Killian a lot and spend a lot of time shadowing her. And I mean, she knows what she's doing. And so just having that, you know, passed on has been really, really special.
You know, we talk about like passing on like choreography. I guess that's sometimes just because when we're talking with choreographers or dancers, that's a lot of our focus. But like the way that teaching is passed down is just so essential and important from person to person, huh?
It's true. And I feel as also as we grow and, you know, so many things have changed the way you approach teaching, and things that used to might have gotten away with in the past just aren't a thing any longer. So just also bringing like care to the students has been really, you know, really important to me.
Yeah. I mean, bringing like a 21st century sensibility to the training that we loved and like the way of dancing that we loved, you know, that's totally, well, yeah, that's the goal. I mean, but I think, Rebecca, I was just thinking like very specifically, like Katrina, for instance, you know, she takes directly from the original like Russian playbook of like the early Russian teachers. So when they teach the babies, they do Madame Dudin's training, like what the very first days, I mean, not the first days, but fairly soon. I mean, when we were at SAB, Madame Duden and Madame Tumkovsky were still there teaching. And I mean, Tumkovsky lived to be nearly 100, maybe exactly 100.
Mm-hmm.
So these were women that have been at the organization for a long time.
There's this gorgeous port de bras that Katrina teaches the little baby. And I mean, it's just watching them all do it. It gives me goosebumps, but it's Madame Duden. You know, it was one of the first things that she brought, and it's really special to keep that lineage going. Definitely.
Wow, that's so cool. And so how often are you doing these like shadowing experiences?
I haven't been there. I'm allowed to pop in as often as I can. Things have gotten a little busy. And then when classes were on Zoom, I was allowed to just log in and watch, which was really cool. And getting to watch Cheryl Ware. And I mean, it was just like fantastic. So I try to go there as often as I can, but things have gotten a little bit busy. So.
I'm so jealous. That's such a, I mean, when I pull from these teachers, like I give a Cheryl Ware combination, but it's like, you know, it's from a class that I watched in 2004. It's really hard to pull back from that long ago, but that's great. You're
She's
still
so gorgeous.
Yeah. So you have some exciting news, another kind of full circle moment for you. Tell us about this news that just came out this week about your next step as a teacher and director, leader.
I'm so excited. I'm the new head of the upper division at the Washington School of Ballet. And it is a full circle moment. And, you know, it's just to be invited back is just so special. And, you know, I've gone to chat with Julie Ken about it before she goes to Houston, and Viamar Reyes and Renat and Christy Wyndham, who I'm replacing. They've just been all so supportive. I mean, I'm just so full of gratitude. I'm so thankful that they're trusting me, and you know, it is definitely full circle. It's like, here we go.
So once you left there, you went to, you know, started working at SAB from whenever you can, and then also being at CPYB. I wonder how your teaching has evolved and how you can now bring that back to kind of like your home team, your home school.
Definitely. I mean, the syllabus at CPYB, I cannot say a single bad thing about it. It has just been eye-opening. And also, I started dancing later, so I had to play catch up. You know, you just kind of get thrown into the dance situation sometimes as a guy. So, I mean, I think I mentioned this to you guys the last time we spoke. I didn't know that you start facing the bar. Thought you went straight away to one hit, you know?
Right.
So just like, you know, because I was wearing soccer shorts at 13 when I started. So just getting those basics from CPYB has been really special. And also the progression when you introduce the next steps and how you proceed has been, I mean, it's been so eye-opening.
Yeah. So tell us about this new job a little bit more. Like maybe you could give us an idea of what you think the institution right now has like really solidly in place, and like what are some other ideas or goals that you have to implement in your new position?
Well, you know, it's kind of like one of those things I keep thinking about. I don't, you know, when the organization has been going for so long, you don't want to go in and reinvent the wheel because it's clearly running and it's been successful. But, you know, I would definitely like to implement some of, you know, what I've learned while being away from there in the past 2 years. And I want to open it up to people of, you know, our generation. I feel like our generation is going through this change of people starting to take over leadership positions. And I want to share that with the organization because, you know, as you guys know, we know some great people. So I definitely want to bring that into the organization. But yeah.
I like that. I mean, it is true. Like we're starting to see that, but it also feels a little bit like it's hard to get to that point, right? Because like still our generation's like seen as a hair young to be going into those roles, but really not. We've been out of dancing for years now. Like when can we start taking over things,
Years.
Tell us
years.
Years.
It's also the one thing that I've had to, like there's been I've been nervous and it's all happening very quickly, but it's also, we have to trust the process, trust the work and the years that we put into ballet.
Right.
That's so exciting. How did the opportunity come about? How did they approach you? Or did you know it was up and you were like, hey, guys, remember me?
I did not know that it was up. I spoke with Julie and they were doing a balancing program. And she asked me if she knew that I was coming to see the show. And then she asked if I would teach the company at the Kennedy Center. And I mean, they were fantastic. And shortly after that, things kind of started moving and I went back again. I was invited to teach the professional training program during Sleeping Beauty just a couple of weeks ago. And then, I still wasn't sure if I was ready to leave CPYB because I feel like there's still so much more to learn, always, everywhere. But, once this opportunity presented itself, it's kind of something you just can't pass up.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yay.
So, Damien, we wanted to have you on because we had an interesting request from one of our listeners to, as the parent of a young dancing boy, this parent was wanting to hear more about male-specific training because we've done lots of episodes about like what summer program is going to be good for you, but there are just very specific needs and differences for young boys. So we wanted to just do an episode kind of centered on that idea, and we thought, who better than to join us for this conversation than you? So, I mean, let's just start like at the very beginning. Let's say you're a boy that's like, 10 years old. Is there a lot, like what goes into the early thoughts of your training? Like how serious does a parent need to be at that given moment? Is it fine to just be at your, I don't want to say Dolly Dinkle, your local studio and, you're the only boy? Like how do we start out? What are some ideas for that moment?
Well, I think it's difficult for when the parents realize, oh my gosh, my boy is really serious about this. When they can tell that they have a passion. I think that the parents being super supportive of the child and trusting this journey that's about to happen. And allowing the child to be open to what is about to happen to them. And rather than like kind of pulling them back, letting them fully embrace it. I mean, it takes a village, but as long as the parents are on board and trusting and willing to accept this passion that their child might have, and also stretch their little tootsies because we don't all have Michael Breeden feet, and the hamstrings,
And so good. Okay. So first thing, support your child, but also stretch their feet and their hamstrings. Okay, we got it.
And then after that, we kind of need to start talking about some conditioning, strength training, push-ups, planks, abs, Pilates, just simple things to get them ready for lifting. One of my first injuries was a stress fracture in my back. Because again, I started late, and then you start lifting girls, and you're doing this, and I think that just those simple introducing those things early as well is really important.
This is just making me think, and this can go for any child that's interested in dancing. I was just speaking with a mom recently that lives near me, and she was asking she'd asked me before, where should I put my daughter? She's 3 years old. Where should she go to dance? Like asking my advice. And I said, I don't think it really matters. Like right now, choose a place that's like close to you. We have one place that's very close, or a school that I would recommend that's much further away. So I guess like my thought would be, when you are dealing with someone who's kind of starting a little bit later, would you still kind of give that sort of advice? And would you say start with ballet, or would you say start with jazz? Like what, you know, like when you're trying to pick the initial step to just dip the toe in, what are we thinking there?
I think, you know, it was helpful to me that I started with jazz. I was very resistant to ballet just because it gives you movement quality. It gives you musicality. It gives you a little bit of freedom, and then you can kind of hone it into ballet, because I think ballet also requires like the child has to be really ready for it because it's so detailed, so intricate. But you know, we know so many kids that started as jazzerinas that are fantastic ballerinas and male dancers.
Right.
So I think that it does something helping getting that movement quality, if that's what they want to do.
And it might be a little bit easier of an entry point maybe for a boy, right?
Yeah. I was so resistant to ballet.
I bet. Yeah.
These are all good points, because I'm thinking, because I started youngish. I mean, I started 7. I mean, I know some girls start when they're 3, but 7 is young for a boy.
For a boy, yeah.
So I hadn't even really considered these like it's still many boys start quite late. So you're like, maybe jazz is an entry point, and like you're thinking we're starting conditioning stuff right away, right? You got to do that. You got to do that push up. You got to do that crunch and a plank.
Totally.
You got to figure it out fast. But what about a boy that does start younger? Like, when would you start to think of those conditioning things as being an integral part of their ballet training?
I think as soon as those kind of growing pains start, you know, when you can tell that they're growing and their body is changing, and that's when, you know, get a little wonky. Or I think that's kind of when even like our boys at CPYB, when I've heard them talking about the growing pains in their knees, and I think kind of that just to compensate that pain.
Probably helps.
Yeah.
I'm laughing in my head because I don't think I had growing pains. I'm so short.
Yes, you did. Oh my God.
Like, I really have no memory of it. I don't think I ever was like, oh wow, growth spurt. I think it was just like slow and steady wins the race until you're done at 5'8".
But when I started dancing, it was the summer before my 8th grade year, and I wore huskies, like husky pants, and all of a sudden I just like stretched out, and my parents were like, who is this child? And it just happened so fast.
That's such good advice. I remember a girl, and when I was younger, that had a crazy growth spurt, and she got really tall, and then she just couldn't dance anymore because she was just like, I don't know what to do with my extra foot of length everywhere. And then she became like really weak. So that's really a great thing that we can all do across the board, probably, right? Is to work on that strength during that time.
And also just doming with the TheraBand when that stuff starts happening. That's what I've been trying to tell a lot of male dancers and dancers in general, that doming, that it's so important. You might not realize it until a lot later, but it really is. It helps so much.
Foot exercises.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have helped my arthritis if I had known that when I was younger.
Wait, in your toe?
Yeah, both my big toes are just like, you should see them now. They're just like flat as a freaking pancake. Like, they don't bend at all.
You need yoga toes.
I bought yoga toes from like at your recommendation. Yeah, they help. They do help. Well, something else that I think is different from like your trajectory, how you're training, but it's still really important, and unfortunately, like, it's just universal pretty much. Most boys, when they get found out at school,
right,
in their about, once they start their training, it eventually word gets out, and then they experience some level, academic school. They experience some level of bullying. So how can parents kind of navigate that? Because that's going to be an inevitable part of a boy's training.
It definitely will. I remember that. I definitely remember that phase. I think that as long as the parents are supportive of their students, their children, and support their son and his goal, But then there's always that little shift of like, oh, he's cool. He spends the day with girls. He lifts girls. You know, there's always this shift that happens. In the beginning, there's bullying, but then I think that, you know, a lot of studios only have one boy, but if there is a male teacher, you know, someone that they can just talk to about these things, that's supportive and trusting, like a role model, you know, someone that they might see in themselves, just to kind of have open conversations, because it's like you said, it's inevitable. Every male dancer's gone through that phase. And I think just having someone to talk to about it and give guidance is really.
And yeah, I mean, I guess this is snobby or elitist, but like, I mean, I remember when you move away from your bullies, when you move to the school, like there's just no better feeling. Sayonara, guys. I
was just thinking that.
So true. And every time I go back to Dallas, I'll run into people and they're like, oh, where do you live now? And I remember going back when I lived in London. They're like, London, England? Like, yeah.
Like, yeah. I have a cool career.
You know, they're like, you dance there? But, you know, just that trust and the belief in the journey, because it's always going to happen to everyone, no matter what. But yeah.
I wonder too. So one thing that comes to mind is a lot of times, and I know Michael's mentioned this before too, at your initial school, you might be the only boy there, or one of very few, of course. So how do you kind of deal with that? And then when do you as a parent think like, okay, my son is really, really invested in this, and maybe it's time for me to try to find, and that can be so hard, right? To find another school. Right. It could be really far away. It could be a lot of commuting, or it could be just sending them away. When does that kind of come into play?
I think that, you know, when you can really tell that they are constantly like excelling or even trying their hardest. And I think that the best way is to start with a summer program so they can meet other male dancers that will turn into being lifelong friends, you know, that are going through exactly the same thing. And it is scary. I remember my mom was like, you're not going away. And I was like, well, there were only 2 boys at my first dance school. And then the next, there were 3 in Dallas. And then, you know, it gets to that point where you could tell when your child is seeking more, and you've got to kind of dip the toe in the water, maybe with the summer program, or, you know, another maybe slightly bigger dance school in your area as well.
Yeah. Summer program. I mean, I remember being so blown away that there could be so many boys in a class when I first went. I think I was 12 when I first went to CBYB, and I was just like, wait, I have people that share my dreams that are like me.
It's very special. My second year at SAB, I think we had 41 boys in advanced.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, what? You know, it was like the biggest group ever. And it was just being able to openly talk and stretch together and know that you're growing and going through changes and secure you're away from your family. I think just having that open dialogue and conversations with either other students or teachers, I think is really important.
For both of you, do you guys feel like when you had that aha moment of like, look at all these other boys that are like me, that want the same thing as me, did that make you then be like, okay, I see a path forward for myself in this? Like, was that one of those aha moments for you that maybe then would make a student want to transfer to a more serious school because they're like, okay, I really want this now?
I think so. Michael, what do you think? I think there were also some insecurities because you know, you're like the big fish at
I was going to say that.
You know, so you do go through those moments of having a bit of insecurity, but that insecurity somehow pushes you. When you're like, wow.
And it is inevitable. You have to learn sooner or later. I mean, when I was 12, my first class at CPYB, I stood across from the bar from Tyler Angle, and I was just like, well, guess I'll die. I mean, I'll never be as good as this boy.
You know, my first one was Ben Griffith. And I looked across at Ben Griffith and Lucienne and Chris. I was like, at Ben Griffith and Lucienne and Chris. I was like, what? Like, what? But
as the kids say these days, the technique was techniquing. It was.
And it's so funny, all the kids, because you see, I love when I have a group of boys as well. They all like snap for each other. It's like everyone's supporting each other. And one thing that like Suzanne would tell us, you have to be your own cheerleader. And I tell the boys, you got to snap for yourself. I see you doing it for everyone else, but give yourself a little snap as well.
Oh, so sweet. I mean, I think I remember that too, going to San Francisco Ballet for the first summer and being like, oh, wow, there are so many good people and they're coming from really, big schools with this like good training, and then that made me want to go away and like in the year and work hard to kind of like not feel as insecure the next summer. So I can absolutely see how you guys had a similar experience. And so then I wonder too about partnering. So you've already kind of brought up, working on starting that strength training as soon as possible. And then, so I guess in some ways you get like, if you're the one boy at your school, you're getting a crash course because you got a partner like every single gal.
Totally.
But that's only if you're right. And that's good, right? That's a good experience. But what if that's something that your school doesn't offer? And like, at what age should we be like, okay, we need to, as a parent, like my son needs to start doing this?
Yeah, I say again, the sooner the better, because it is just such a part of male dancing. And the sooner the better, the soon as you can get that feeling of pushing a girl forward and making her look her best. And, not being shy or, like as soon as you can get like the distance and how to put them down properly, because it is so much to learn. And there's always going to be a girl that will let you have it. That, so the sooner the better and the more conscious you are of, like how to work.
There was a dancer in my very first partnering class at CPYB she was 12 and a prodigy, or maybe she was younger than me. She might have been 10 or 11, but like prodigy, CPYB, for those who don't know, famously, always houses a large number of what they call barn babies, kids that are, is the barn still in use?
It's opening back up for this summer. When I first came here, I only taught at the barn. We had the renovation, so but it will be back open for the summer, and it's just so special.
Right. The barn is part of like CPYB lore. Marcia Dale Weary, she came to start this school from scratch, from nothing, and so the classes originally were only in a barn. So these prodigies, they were called barn babies. So this dancer, who was a barn baby. I'll tell you who it is later. But she like gets put with me because we're both little. I was 12 and let's say she's 10 or 11, and she turns around and kind of glares at me and is like, "Are you good? I need to know if you're good before we do this."
Oh no. That was your first class?
I was like, "I think so. I don't know." I was like, "I don't know about partnering, but." Yeah. So you're right. A girl will come for you because they don't want to be dropped.
Totally. And then also going back to the strength training, girls can tell. Do you remember that combination of SAB? You'd be in opposite corners and you'd like PK arabesque and run and press the girl. And once girls realize that you have muscles and you can press them, they're like, "Can I go with you? I want to go with you."
Yeah.
Wait, can you do press me? Once they like, it's
that's so true. So you can have an advantage if you start Damien's strength training early. You can be the one that gets picked.
There you go.
I love it. That's true.
But what about what about just for regular, for other purposes, like male virtuosity? Ballet is it's super gendered, so it's not even just partnering thing.
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
true.
We just do different steps. So what about that component of training? Like, how important is it to be in a class where you get to do double tours with other young boys, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it is also because there's also found there was a fear of doing those steps, especially on stage and in tights. And so again, like looking at the lights in front of you, knowing that you have to do a tour at the end of the ballet, like I think, again, the sooner the better to help get over that fear and just making it very comfortable is like part of your everyday. Because I didn't do my first one for a long time and I was scared.
Some of us never get over that fear. Some of us never get over it.
It's terrifying. And then, doing a manege with a double soda box. And I say the more that you just kind of constantly do those steps, the better.
I mean, I think about this interview we did with Christine Shevchenko all the time because it just was so bonkers to me. I had just seen her Kitri debut. And of course, Kitri famously finishes with 32 fouettes. And, if I were doing my Kitri debut, I would just be like thinking about that the whole first 3 hours of the ballet. And she just came out there and murdered the fouettes. Like, fouettes found dead in a ditch. She was like, they were so good. And I asked her about it in the interview. She was like, well, that's my like safe place. Like I had a teacher that was so adamant about being able to do it at such a young age that now I have it like in my back pocket. I was more nervous about creating a character. I'm like, am I good actress? Like, am I going to make an arc? And so I think you're totally right. Like I wish someone had bullied me into doing better double tours when I was like 10.
I think we went to the Rock together. I stayed at the Rock for SAB and she was 12 and I remember her doing fouettes. And it's just the younger, the more like, and more comfortable that you get with it so that it's there. Like, at CPYB, they give this step. Fondue to the front and the center, plie, releve, stay, fondue to. And these kids, they do it every day. They promenade in second, on they go. Every single day, turn one whole two, three whole four. And then all of a sudden you see them just do it. And they, everyone's kind of upset about it in the beginning, but you see like within a year, they all just do it. I'm like,
it probably doesn't hurt as bad when you start that young and then you can just do it, except for, like when your hips are giving out later in life and you're
right.
This is making me think from a teacher perspective, as someone who's taught, in schools where often there's maybe just one or two boys, I would try to offer some men's steps at the end of class. How can a teacher support a one or two boy in their school situation in terms of like, and then I'm thinking too, like if the school I was teaching at didn't have partnering at the end of class, can I offer that in some ways? Like how could a teacher kind of pepper that in and support these male dancers as well?
Definitely. Like what I try to do is, especially if it's a group, if there are a few boys and then there are girls that put on their point shoes. So I'll try to give, a couple of steps in, and then again at the end of the class, do a tombe, pas de bracing, double tour, and thesis, and then keep a couple of girls and just let them promenade them around because that's hard at first. I think just kind of adding that into the normal class if there's time for it is really, really helpful.
Sometimes
and then a lot
I
of times the girls clap for the boys. It is. And, they clap for them when they're doing their thesis or...
Right. They want to support them.
But if there's time that allows it, I think I'm adding a little time to make them also feel special.
Yeah.
Maybe before we wrap up, maybe we could just list some men's programs that you really admire in the nation, places that you think that maybe have catering specifically to young boys' needs as dancers.
Well, I would definitely say CPYB and the Washington School of Ballet.
Yes. Come on over.
Also Houston and Herod. I think that there are a lot of places where that do focus and there's a camaraderie of boys. definitely. I think that there are quite a few. I think just doing that research and just a little computer time and Googling, even because sometimes it's even, nearby.
Right.
There's this school in South Bend, Indiana. I mean, he is fantastic. And I went and taught there, and what he does with these boys is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what's the name of the school? Okay.
It is Southhold Dance Theater. And he's fantastic. And also one of our closest friends, Ted Seymour at Ballet Chicago, is doing so much wonderful stuff with guys as well.
So as a parent, when you're looking for a school for your son, what would be, if you called them, what would be the things you would say to ask? Like, what classes are offered? How many boys are there? Things like that.
Right. I would definitely ask how many boys are there. Is there time made for male-specific classes? Is there some sort of conditioning class? And maybe to get on like a contact list of parents of other male students that are already there and just hear kind of what their feedback is and how it's worked for them, I think is really important. And again, having that relationship with other parents going through the same things and boys going through the same thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Well, Damien, thank you so much for this beautiful episode. If I were a parent, I would feel safer in the hands of Damien Johnson.
That means a lot to me.
Thank you so much for your time, and we'll definitely have you back on anytime you want to chat. We always
anytime.
And hopefully we'll be seeing you in DC soon.
Yes.
You sure will.
Conversations on Dance is part of the ACAST Creator Network. For more information, visit conversationsondancepod.com.